That property where Corpus Christi Parish is, it was a Franciscan monastery, and it was sold by the monastery to a fraternity, and then the fraternity sold it to back to Corpus Christi Parish.
People probably wouldn't recognize this from the pictures, but we cut pine branches down from the trees that were around here. And that was the year before we built the building, and President Horton came over, and I think Bishop Hoffman was here, and we did a ground blessing. And the permanent community had bowls of water, and they blessed the ground as opposed to a ground breaking. That was one of Father BACIK's great ideas. So that was really neat.
And then there's the people that served on the building committee here, led by John Graham, and people like Ken Thompson, an artist at the university, who did so much of the artwork around, involved in all of the artwork, the windows, the Blessed Sacrament Chapel, that alumni plaza out there, and the baptismal font, the windows. He was involved in all of that. Ken Thompson.
It was exciting, and I'm not sure that we realized how it was all going to come together. I remember walking in with Father BACIK at one point, and we saw all these pillars all over the place. And at one point, we were in the gathering space that was going to be the gathering space, and he said, "We have too many pillars. These pillars have to go." Well, then we spoke to the architect, and the pillars can't go, and obviously there's a circle, there's a reason for this, but the other part of it is they're holding up the building. So that was, and the fact that it happened within a year, we were very lucky. One of the pictures shows snow, and that was the only time we had snow the entire build.
The architect who designed these facilities, he planned the liturgical part of it, was Father Vasco, who also designed Our Lady Queen of Angels Cathedral in Los Angeles. So, we sort of had state-of-the-art ideas and design.
You notice at Corpus Christi, the altar is right in the center. And altar in the center, that represents Christ. We're all gathered around Christ. We're in a circle. We're part of a community. We have much mentioned Father Richard Vasco, who was the brains behind this whole church, internationally known church designer. He worked on the Los Angeles Cathedral, Seattle Cathedral, Milwaukee. And when he wrote a book about church architecture, he wanted Corpus Christi to be on the cover of his book.
Actually, the architects locally, though, one of them was, in fact, an alumnus of this parish, Paul Sullivan. He worked for the Collaborative. He and another colleague down there were the ones who designed this building, the architects.
And the other part of the build was that the people who were involved in building the church, all the subcontractors, they took great pride in what they were doing. And as they were going along, they would say to us, "Are you sure this is what you want?" And sometimes we would do change orders based on their perception of what was happening, and because they took such pride in what they were doing.
Another thing that we sort of insisted on in the building was we wanted good acoustics. And even without the sound system running, you can hear very well people on the other side, people behind you, so forth. When the Toledo Symphony comes here, they love it. It's, acoustically, it's great. So that was one of the things that struck me. Dean Ludwig was on the business faculty at the university. He was very good at woodworking, and he built this wonderful wood altar, and I remember the bishop smearing the olive oil and the chrism all over that. That was a scene, quite an experience.
I remember being a little squeamish when he poured oil all over the altar and swished it around, and my thought was, my goodness, how are we going to clean that up? But it was a beautiful Mass, and we had a great reception afterwards, and it was a great celebration. I was going through the pictures, and I was struck by, unfortunately, how many people are no longer with us that were there, including Bishop Hoffman.
And one of the treats for me was to, in recognition of my many years of doing the student leadership development, that committee that put the building together wound up naming a lounge, the student lounge there at Corpus Christi is named the Zach Lounge.
What we came from and where we are, it's like utopia. You know, to be able to feed this many students after 6 o'clock Mass, where before we had this little kitchen and we couldn't do that.
I was there during the building campaign and getting the things going. Father Zach and Father BACIK worked hand in hand, and we were an integral part of that. And it was like we've climbed the mountain. You know, we've reached the top of the mountain and we have something to show for it, and time has shown what a beautiful church and community it's developed into.
We are a Catholic presence and very visible presence to the University of Toledo, whereas before we weren't as visible. And so our ministry has grown, our student participation has grown, and our permanent community has grown. And it's because of this permanent structure.
You know, when I think of Corpus Christi, I think of people. I think of Father Bob Kirtland, who helped found this parish and created wonderful relationships with the highest levels of the university, the president and deans, vice presidents, and set the stage for future developments. I think of my colleague, Dan Zach, who revitalized the Newman Club and did marvelous work. He was a whirlwind of activity and energy. And I think of Monsignor BILLIAN and Father Jeremy Miller, who carried on the traditions after I left this region and did it so well, and with a lot of energy and creativity and innovation. I think of faculty members who were committed to the well-being of this university and to the Corpus Christi, and who brought their own sense of morality and values and hard work, research, studying, teaching, preparing classes, and enriched the university in that way.
And that's really one of the cool things that happens here, that dynamic between permanent community, the lifelong parishioners who are stable residents of Toledo, and those who just come here for 2 years or 4 years or 6 years as university students. To see the energy of the students in the permanent community, there's a mentorship that happens there. There's a real synergy of energy that carries out into the community as they get involved and as they support and learn from each other in that way.
Corpus Christi is a very wonderful and unique parish. You know, the synergy of the people who celebrate Mass there and call that place their parish home makes the absolute difference about that community.
One of the things we always thought about here was, how do we prepare students to live in the real world? To take their faith in being an accountant or being a nurse or whatever your job was, to live out the faith in that setting. That's part of what our calling is all about.
If a student doesn't take advantage of what they have to offer there, that they're missing out on a tremendous opportunity to help appreciate their faith even more so as they move forward.
I saw students involved, student leaders who came forward and used their talents and beautifully developed their gifts by having leadership positions. I always like to think Corpus Christi is sort of a model of what the bishops had in mind.
Corpus Christi Parish is really the crossroads of the church and higher education at UT.
I always remember that the mission of Corpus Christi is to serve the University of Toledo, to help the university live up to its highest ideals.
And that's really the beauty of that place. How the people of God who gather in that parish community share the energy of Christ with one another.
The real legacy of Corpus Christi is seen in the alumni. It's seeing the students after they leave the University of Toledo, and to see them go out and live their lives, build families, build friendships, get involved in the community, start their careers, to see them live their faith and live the lessons they learned here at Corpus Christi, that's where the true legacy lies. And that legacy goes all over the world. I think about our students who are international students who have taken what they've received and encountered and felt here at Corpus Christi and literally have taken that all over the world, certainly all over the country, and all our graduates who've gone on in so many different ways. And everywhere they go, they take the light of Christ they experienced here and allow it to shine through them and all the different things they do, and the ways they continue to serve and live the way they were formed here at Corpus Christi Parish.